Hey, welcome. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. It's been a while. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. I'm happy to see you come through. As you can tell, the hair's gotten a little bit long. I've been in my hibernation mode. I'm based in Las Vegas, but it's getting a little cold here. So we've had a little bit of a break. And welcome to the new year. You can watch this show Wednesdays, Bring Your Worth TV, at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. And come through for that. And you can also get my latest book, the complete Bring Your Worth collection. Has all the books that I've done, almost all the business books that I've done over the past, oh my gosh, 10 years. It's been a minute, but it has the Ultimate Bite Sized Entrepreneur trilogy, which y'all made a bestseller. Thank you. As well as Bring Your Worth, which is the eponymous show that you're watching right now, as well as the publishing company, as well as my personal favorite, Built From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Yeah, so this show is to help you level up as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. We're talking about people who are building their own path, who are not dependent on a traditional income, and people that are doing things that are different. For myself, my background is journalism. I have 2 degrees in journalism, master's in magazine publishing. Well, for a lot of the magazines, if you're around in the early aughts, that you might have been reading, from Playboy to the New York Post, which is a newspaper, to Family Circle, a lot of those guys. And then end up transitioning into authorship, writing several books, including some of the ones I mentioned. And then when I became a father, shout out to my beautiful kids, then I became an entrepreneur at the exact same time. And the second startup I did, called Cuddler, and it becoming the #1 app in the world twice, and me and my co-founders ended up selling it about 10 years ago. And since that time, I've been working with a lot of folks like yourself who are non-traditional entrepreneurs who might not pattern match the folks that I met in Silicon Valley. We'll leave it at that, as well as trying to have a life outside of the traditional things that we do. And there's so much of the discussion as far as us having to sacrifice ourselves at the altar of productivity, or at the altar of financial good. And good, however you want to frame it, good for yourself and your people, or good as far as for the world. I don't think that's true. And so the books that I have, as well as the 400 plus episodes that you guys have been writing with me, as far as with Bring Your Worth TV, just celebrated 5 years a month ago of the show. That's been hoping to prove that point, as well as to give you the tools so that you can also prove that point as well. Today, we're talking about how to make more profit in this new year. I'm excited about this one. Um, I think there's a level of discouragement when it comes to the economy right now, and there's a little bit of chaos. There always is. Let's be honest. I got the gray hairs here, so I've been around for a while. There's always a little bit of chaos in regards to the world that we're building in. Hence my book, when the pandemic hit, called Build From Now. There's a way that you can create and do good in the world, and also build up your business in almost any circumstance. And again, this show started right when the pandemic began. I got my graduate degree and went into the world right when the dot-com bubble was bursting back in 2000. So, you know, yeah, it's time to rock and roll. There's always time to grow. And in fact, we might need you more than ever because of all the things that are happening in the world, however you want to interpret that in your culture and in your world. So today we're going to talk about ways that you can kind of do a financial reset with the new things that are happening right now. We talked about some tools that I personally use, as well as some recommended things, including books that you can grab to help you level up your finances in the upcoming year. So the first thing we want to talk about, though, is the newsletter. Newsletter comes out every Wednesday, every single Wednesday. It arrives to your mailbox at 5:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Been doing a newsletter for, oh my gosh, more than a decade. 15 years? A long time, a long time. So again, I appreciate y'all that have supported it. Feel free to join the newsletter right there at joindamon.me. It's always free. What we talked about, or what I talked about specifically in the newsletter, is how I treat this period of time as a financial reset. If you're based in the Americas, we just celebrated New Year's, so it's actually the first full week of the year, and If you're watching in the reruns, of course, you can you can interpret that for whatever year it happens to be. But for it's the beginning of the year, and from my birthday, which is around the fall, all the way till now, that last quarter, I tend to take that time to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what makes sense, and kind of doing like a reset or a cleanse. One of the things I talk about in the newsletter, I get like a lot more extensive into it, is that for a while I thought two different things. First, I thought that to be a true creator like the James Baldwins and the John Coltrane's, that you had to be in some type of poverty, that you had to be a starving artist. Now that term actually came from a novel that came out in the late 1800s. There's a couple good books that talk about the history of that. But come to find out, that's a relatively new term, starving artist, just over the past 150 years. Then I became a starving artist, post grad in Chicago. Shout out to Northwestern. And I was like, no, no, my stomach grumbling is not making me a better writer because writing is where I began my career. But then the second thing that happened, which I'm still processing, is this idea that when we have a bad year as a non-traditional entrepreneur, as a side hustle, as a solopreneur, as a freelancer, as my previous career talks about, that when we have a rough year, that we're somehow damaged, that we failed. The fact is that there's a lot of things that are happening from a macro level and from all that that affect what we do. Also, a lot of stuff we do is seasonal. I used to write a lot about video games. And so if it was a big year for video games, let's say a Grand Theft Auto game came out, then suddenly I'd be making more money. But it took me years to link those two things together, right? If it was a year where people were talking about side hustles, hustling more, then suddenly my book sales would go crazy, right? And then other times it'll be like, it's doing okay. It's doing okay. So there's macro things that are happening. There's also things as far as productivity, as far as burnout. We'll be talking about that later on this year in an upcoming episode. My whole point is that just because financially things get difficult or that you had a rough year, like if you had a rough year and you were in a corporate job or it was a more traditional structure, then it'd be like, oh, well, the economy's doing this and this is what's going on with tariffs and da da da, particularly here in America. When we're independent, we don't think like that. We assume it's all our fault. That's understandable because we do so many things on our own. What I talk about in the newsletter is us giving ourselves permission to have a bad year. There's no protection against that. You can have a less bad year, but in the 20 plus years that I've been independent, I've had years that were spectacular and I've had years that were pretty crappy. And of course, the pressure gets higher when, if you're like myself, you have a family or you have other people that are depending on you. It becomes a lot more intense. But the fact is that this is all part of the game. So I talk about that in the newsletter. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this episode today. You know, Making more profit with online content always seems challenging. Content creators could use sites/companies to help connect content with brands for brand deals. Yeah, there's actually really good suggestion. There's actually a really good one that I was not planning on talking about, but I'll throw it in there right now. But thank you for the comment, and that makes perfect sense. Yeah, because I think that's one of the challenges is that we don't always know what the next step is going to be, and because of that we're kind of like, well, how do we actually, sorry to use my term again, excuse me, but how do we build from now? Do you know what I mean? And if we don't know that, then that's what makes it difficult. And if we, because it becomes a little bit more, to paraphrase what I was saying earlier, it makes it harder to because there's no particular path. There's no particular direction to go in to say, oh, okay, I want a brand deal. I want to go in this particular direction. And there's less available, particularly and I appreciate your comment. Of course, you and I go way back, so I know your material. For folks that have been doing this for a while, when we started, even me being as young as I am as far as with the channel, this channel as of this live show is 5 years old. 5 years ago, it was like a big black box as far as how to connect with brands and how to get support and so forth. And a couple of the brands that support me, I'm going to be mentioning them later on in the show. And so, but those paths are a little bit more complicated for us, and that's one of the ways we can build financial security. You know, great. So I'll be talking about that in this show very briefly. Thank you so much for. I appreciate that though. I appreciate your comment. Sorry, my my text is like fighting me right now. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. You upgraded a lot of my technology, and I think the computer is the next one on the list. I'm gonna keep it a buck, right? And I'll throw that in the chat as well, so you guys can link on it. Here we go. All right. And so that's why I talk about the newsletter. And as you can tell, this is already kind of spurring conversation. Again, thank you so much for the feedback on that. That's spurring conversation, and it gets a little bit deeper because then we have the tactical side of it, where what parts of our business do we actually have control over? And again, we can go a little bit deeper into that, um, as we do that. And again, thanks again for the commentary. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about one really good place I've been working with for a while that connects me with those kinds of things. So the first step, as far as with um, kind of making your money better this year and locking things down, particularly as an independent creator, is make the money you have active. So in other words, the money you have, make sure it's active, and that leads into some of the folks that are supporting the show today too. So very recently, I started getting more serious about the money, more serious about how I was spending the money, what I was doing with it, making it more active again. I got the gray hairs. So I'm kind of at that point, where it's like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and double down as far as how we're gonna take care of things for myself as well as for obviously for my family as they get older as well. So one of the things I got into is well, several things. One thing is to invest very wisely, and that can be investing into the people that and legitimate companies that you support. And a lot of those are the brands that I talk about during the show. And you look at the past 450 or so episodes and see the different brands I talk about. These are actually places that I invest in, as in supporting the company, and in some cases, actually having stock in them. The second part of it is actually parking the money that you have in places that are more active. Now, something I got into, which is connected to one of the companies I want to talk about, are HYSAs, or high yield savings accounts. High yield savings accounts are, in some cases, a multiple as far as the interest rates that you would get in the traditional savings or checking accounts, but they're with some of the same organizations, whether it's like a bank or credit union or thing like that. The challenge that I found, and if you've read the newsletter, and this is the work that you, as far as being a side hustle, a solopreneur, a non-traditional entrepreneur, you know the direction I'm going in. We will get a check, maybe a really nice check, maybe a five-figure check. Some of y'all are really lucky getting six-figure checks. And what a lot of people don't understand, but you might, is you get that check maybe from a book deal, and that check might have to last you months. I had some cases where I got a check and the project was going to last 2 years. You know who you are. And it was like, what? And they were late with the checks. And I was like, yo, I'm just working with y'all. Even though I was independent, it was a big enough project where that was the main thing I was doing. So it's even more crucial for us. Yes, if you're rocking with the show, you're watching right now, watching Bring Your Worth TV. Thank you. And you have a traditional job, bully for you. This information will be pertinent to you. But having something like HYSCSA allows you to actually have your money grow because it's sitting there. So if you, let's say you end up getting $100,000 check, sounds good, right? Of course, you take your taxes out, got to take your taxes out. And then let's say you have 60,000 or 70,000 left. But let's say that's going to last you for the next 2 years, and you have to take care of you and your family for that, or yourself, whatever the situation may be. It doesn't make any sense, at least in my experience, to have it in some type of account that has 0.2% interest. When you have HYSAs, which current numbers are relatively high, and again, these are actually within the context of these traditional credit unions and banks. So it's not like a crypto play, nothing wrong with crypto, but it's not like a crypto play. It's not like you're going to invest it in the guy down the street and he's going to hold it for you and flip it. I don't mean that. I mean, these are actually legitimate institutions. One of the things that's really important with these things is that, at least here in America, and in the equivalent of it for credit unions, would be that they're FDIC insured, which means that they're insured to a certain amount. So that's the same as having a particular type of checking thing. And so one of the ways that I started learning more about this, the first thing I did was I ended up talking to my friends and my mentors. You know who you are. Get yourself a network, folks that are older. In fact, some folks that are younger that are putting me on game as far as how to manage my money. Thank you. You know who you are. The second thing I did was actually the folks that are supporting the show today, which is Bankrate. And Bankrate is really cool because, and I was using them well before we ended up working together, because you can click on right here, on the link right there, as well as with the QR code over here. You can go there for free. It organizes all the legitimate, well-known slash well-respected um, HYSAs. Shows the pros and the cons. They're all insured. I think FDIC insurance is up to $250,000. So most of us will probably be good, right? So if something happens with a particular bank or credit union, then you're covered, right? That's what the insurance means. I forget the name of the credit union equivalent of that because they don't use FDIC, but they use another one. If you know what it is, please jump in the chat. And then they also will organize them based on the current interest rates, like the current ones. And again, I want to make sure this content is fresh, so I'm not even going to spout numbers, but the numbers are good. We'll leave it at that. And because they're literally called HYSAs, high yield savings accounts, these savings accounts actually allow you to get way more interest with your money being parked there. So again, if we have the proverbial $100,000 book deal, or even say $10,000 book deal, and after taxes you have $7,000, and you're not going to use that money quite yet, or you're going to use it slowly, you still can access it and it can continue to grow. If you want to support the channel, I'm rocking with Bankrate, as well as allowing you to level up what you're doing. You can use the QR code right over here, or you can go ahead and do the link. The links are right below, all in the commentary right there. You know, right? I got you. I got you. But that's the thing. And I know you well. I know you're independent as well. If your money's inactive, but once the money starts flowing, and again, it's hills and valleys, then you want that money active. You want it to work for you. So thank you for the commentary. But yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? So thank you for Bankrate for supporting. If you want to support the channel, and it's all free, then you can use the QR code over here. Sorry, everything's mirrored over here. QR code over here, or use the link below in the comments. So number one, you want to go ahead and make the money you have active. The second thing you want to do, you want to create a system for delivery. Create a system for delivery. What I mean by this is that you get some way of, as soon as that check comes in, you don't think about it and it just goes to where it needs to go. Here's what happens. I remember my first major check. Yeah, no, I remember the moment. I remember the moment. And it was a really nice check. Even though it'd be nice, relative to now, but this is quite a while ago. And I remember getting the check and almost freaking out. And this is old enough where it was actual check. There was no EFT, there was no direct deposit. And so I got a physical check in the mail back when the postal service was respected. And I remember just looking at it. And of course, I ran to the bank. I was with a bank at the time. I ran to the bank. It was a local bank. Ran to the bank and then had it deposited. Of course, they give it to you in fractions if it's a certain amount. So it'll give you a certain amount, and then the rest of it clears. Like you can hold them out. And I remember almost obsessively trying to come up with a game plan because I'm like, I know the check is coming. I invoiced them. They said it's on the way. It was a major corporation, so I trusted them. Da da da. And but when it hit, I was like, oh my gosh, let me call all my friends and let's all go out to eat. Like, let's go have a night. Let's like, no, 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 no. You got, you got bills, homie. You got stuff to do. What about your phone bill? You might want to do that. Make sure your rent's good. All those different things. Having a system prevents you from going off the rails. Habits aren't going to do it for you. If you read Atomic Habits, if you read any of the old school, like Tim Ferriss stuff, any of this, at least for my generation, classic literature as far as that certain period of time where we were talking about productivity about 20, 25 years ago, all of them, even with the term habits and atomic habits, it's not necessarily about the habits. It's about the structures that you create that facilitate the habits. For instance, really simple example. If I want to go to the gym, but I don't have proper gym shoes. The shoes I do have, the laces are bad. I don't have a gym membership, and I haven't carved out because I live and die by my schedule on my phone. I haven't put a space in my phone to say, Damon, go to the gym. Do you see all the issues with that? I have to go and buy shoes. Not crazy about shopping, so I gotta go buy shoes, and or I gotta get new shoelaces. Which if I order them online, it's gonna take time. Or if I go to the corner store and get shoelaces, da, 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 I don't have a gym membership, so that means I need to make sure I have it in my budget, which means I need to do my budget as well as going up to the front counter of wherever the gym is, and then going through. If you join the gym, it's a whole rigmarole of that, da da da. That's not even going to enter the flow, and I haven't put it in my calendar, right? So I have myself, I have my co-parenting partner who I have kids with, so we're coordinating. I got the show, I run multiple businesses, I got my publishing company and all this stuff, and I got my general health as well as family that's, beyond the family I created, beyond my nuclear family. And all of that, I'm going to go lift weights for an hour. Do you see how many issues there are with that? The problem though isn't that I have a bad habit. The problem is that I have no system. The system isn't set up. So if you end up getting, again, we'll talk about the $10,000 check. Let's say you get a $10,000 check and you might owe this credit card bill and you might owe this over here, and then you have to pay this person, you have to pay taxes, da da da. In the theory of that, you might be like, screw it. I'll just go ahead and, you know, blow this on a deposit to a new car or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a car guy. But you understand my point? The problem is in the systems, not in our habits. That's one of the things I was talking about at the top of the show with the newsletter. And up until recently, there was this sense of shame that I've had because I've had my financial ups and downs, particularly after I had a family. My eldest is as of this recording 12. So I've had a family for a while. And particularly after I had a family, I was like, I can't have an off year. Right. And I was married at the time. I was like, I can't have an off year. I can't, I can't have an off year. Well, number one, if you're in a partnership, that's what you have a partner for, right? Right. So that's one. The second part of it is I realized that was residual guilt because other people around me, including my partner at the time, had traditional jobs. So they could every other Friday, right? They still do that. You see how long I've had it since I've had a traditional job. But every other Friday, you're going to get your paycheck. So you might blow this check. You might be like, oh man, all right, well, I guess I'll be eating rice and beans until next Friday. We can't, as independents, we can't do that. It, it, we can't do that. We don't have that luxury if we're independent, if we're the non-traditional entrepreneurs. So that's why we need some type of system. I've done 27 books. About half of them are with traditional publishers. That meant that a traditional publisher, often in New York, shout out to my agents and my publishers in New York and editors in New York in the past, a traditional publishing company was sending me a check sometimes a big one, sometimes a little one, sending me a check and expecting me to live off that advance until the book was completed and on the shelf, which could take, anywhere from a year. My longest book took me 5 years, you know? And so, with that in mind, we need to have some type of system when we get a check. If we don't have a system when we get a check, then it's chaos. It's been tough for me because over the past year, I've been revising my system when I get a check, and it's sometimes gotten messy where I'm like, "Oh, I forgot about this and da da da." And I recently moved over the past couple of years, so it's like, "What?" And so all these things are changing. But if we have some type of system to start, it makes it easier to adjust the system. My concern is I want to make sure you have a system, period. Some of us don't like, I felt like I had a system that was okay. And I spent the past year trying to improve that system. I'm still working on it. That's way better than not having a system at all and then you're just freestyling. You don't want to freestyle it. This isn't hip hop. You don't want to freestyle with your money. Particularly again, if you're independent and you're getting one big check a year, nah, no, we can't do that. And then it gets more complicated because we might have people that work for us, and then we get into the tax part when it comes to being self-employed. It can get really complicated really quickly. So you got to make sure that you have some type of system in place. My favorite book, as far as having a system, and shout out to Monique Woodard. I love you. One of the top VCs up in San Francisco. She actually introduced me to this book, Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Shout out to Mike too. Hope you're doing wonderful. He actually has a new book coming out. I forget the name of the book, but you can follow him on all the major platforms. It's related to Profit First, though. This is the OG, the classic. I have it digitally. I wish I had a physical copy so I could show y'all. It's a tiny little book, even smaller than my best sub book right here. It's like a third of this. Mike is killer. Here's what Profit First is. It's a system of buckets. If you're old school or your family's old school like mine is, rest in peace to my grandmother. She's in the picture right behind my big head. We're talking when you got a check or when you got money from the factory or wherever you're working at. That was the case for my family. They worked at the factory. Excuse me. Then you take some of the money, you cash your check or whatever the situation may be. You take some of the money and you put it into a coffee can. Or, when I was growing up, my parents, my mom, my stepdad, I appreciate y'all. They would, if I had extra change, then we had this big old jar that was wider than I am right now. Maybe not that wide, but a big jar, a large jar. If you're of my age, if you're middle age, you know what I'm talking about. Those really big, like water jugs that they would put on top of they would put on top of the water coolers. Those kind of joints. Water coolers are barely around anymore, but you know what I'm getting at. One of those joints, and I'd put coins in there. And then if I could fill up part of it, then I can go get a toy. That's basically Mike's system, except his system is built for people who have non traditional jobs. It can work for folks that have a 9 to 5, again, like my former partner or the people in my family who have traditional jobs who they get paid and FICA and all the folks take what they need to take out of it. And then whatever you have, you can go play with or pay your bills with. That works fine for y'all. It's good. But it's really for folks like us who have the 1 to maybe 5 checks a year that are of a nice size, but we have to take care of everything with that. And I do mean everything. There is no backup. Profit First is excellent as far as breaking down the systems of that. And that basically comes down to, and I'll try to simplify it, it comes down to having essentially 5 or 6 different accounts. One, of course, for taxes, but then you have one for business expenses, which a practice you should have anyway. But one for business expenses. You might have one for, I usually have one for like donations or charity. And so if there's a GoFundMe or if there's a nonprofit that I want to support, then I can say, oh, already took 2% of my last paycheck. I can just fund it over there, particularly nowadays, because it's a wild time. We need to support each other, right? And then of course you have your operating income and as well as your which is an important part of it, your actual profit. And so one of the things that I'm still personally working on, that's how deep this book is. I've been reading this book for 15 years. I'm still trying to master it. Is to basically say, look, you're in my case, I'm a solopreneur. You're not just the the um, the employee of the company because I'm employing myself, but you're also the founder. And I've worked as a founder before. You know what I mean? I've worked as a founder before, and being a founder twice over, and being a founder, I naturally had a percentage of the company, right? That's when you're talking about love them or hate them, but they're kind of the blueprint as far as understanding this. If you have like Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or what have you, particularly with someone like Bezos, you think he's still not making money on Amazon? He is. Not only because of the stock he has, but also he gets a percentage of, frankly, every sale, whether it's a fraction of a penny or whatever the deal is, because he's the founder. So it ends up being you paying yourself, not just for you doing the work, as in I'm a ghostwriter. It's one of the things that I do. So not only paying myself for the work as being a ghostwriter, but also paying myself as a founder because I actually own the company that's doing the ghostwriting. That's part of the energy, you know? See, I can understand and respect that. Right? Right? Like I said, I used to cover video games again. This guy knows the deal. And so that was often what I would do with my coins. But shout out to Mike McAllowitz. I hope you're doing wonderful. I always appreciate your work. Um, as well as the team you have, because I love your team too. But fantastic book. It is a classic to me. His next books might be better. This one, goaded in my book. Goaded in my book. For for y'all that are watching, do you have a system when the check comes in? Are you kind of coming in there and saying, well, we'll see how it goes? That's a tough place to be. And again, we're live right now. We're talking live right now at the top of the year. If you're going to change something, now's the time. Again, entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown, and you're watching Bring Your Worth TV. I'm here Wednesdays live at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can get my book, The Complete Bring Your Worth Collection, available everywhere now. You can also listen to it for free here on the channel if you're an audiophile. All right. When it comes to making sure your money's good for this year, make sure everybody gets paid. That ties to what I was just talking about earlier in the episode, as far as with Mike Michalowicz and Profit First. That also applies to other people who might need some of that money. The first thing is you. There's a certain amount of fat you can trim to make sure that you can get through the day, to make sure that your business is up and running, all those things. I've never had a fancy car. I'm relatively frugal with my clothes and stuff like that. Those are decisions, trade-offs that I made so that I could be hanging out with you guys, so I could own my company, so that, the more flashy stuff that I would have, the more expensive stuff I would have, the more I'd be beholden for someone else to pick me. I don't want to live that life. The other side of that, though, is that I and you, if you're independent, need to make sure that you take care of yourself. That means, in my case, I'm food and travel. Just call me Fodors, right? So if it was hit the lottery or the next business that I grow, and then we end up having I had an exit, but it wasn't a major exit, but it ended up being a major exit for the next company, then it would be, you know, hanging out somewhere, traveling, with my kids and with my family and all that, and eating really good food, right? Making sure that you get paid in that particular way too. As I always say to my coaching clients, you can learn more about my coaching at damonbrown.net if you're interested. What I always tell my clients is that we don't make the sacrifices, and I would call these sacrifices, of the gray hairs and the checks sometimes running late, building our businesses from scratch. Every business that I built is from scratch. I never bought somebody else's business. I co-founded the last business that I had that ended up exiting. Other than that, it's been myself. So I mean, We're building all this stuff from the ground up. We're building from now. Again, hence the name of the book. We're going to do all this, as well as have the lack of cultural understanding from family, from friends, from culture in general, who doesn't know what the hell we're doing. They don't get it. I don't blame them, but that's hard, particularly when you're younger. Now I don't mind as much, but when I was younger, it's like I'm trying to build something and other people wouldn't understand. So we go through all this cultural stigma, we go through the financial ups and downs, which we're talking about in this episode, and then we're not going to take care of ourselves. We're not going to carve out the money to travel. We're not going to take care of our health. We're not going to be better. We're not going to do that. Sorry, got some random stuff on my shirt. But do you understand what I'm saying? Like, why are we taking all these risks? I've been independent for a long time. I'll be darned if I'm not going to take care of myself in some form, particularly at this period of time. And it's not a matter of earning it. It's a matter of looking at your contemporaries who have traditional jobs, and you might see them on vacation, or you might see them taking care of themselves and going on a spa day, or getting a massage or what have you. That it sounds indulgent, but at a certain point, we need to take care of ourselves because no one else is. That's what I'm getting at. If you're independent, no one else is going to take care of you. My kids care about my well being, but they're not going to be like, hey, dad, you should go get a massage. They're young. Maybe when they're older, but you're not going to do that. Your clients certainly aren't. Your customers will not. No shade towards anybody I just mentioned. Just that's just not where they're focused on. And you're not going to have a boss. So I got my East Coast accent comes off. Boss. Suddenly you have a boss. It's not like you have a boss or you have this, that, and the third who are going to be like, or HR department to say, hey, you should be, you're gonna, you're gonna lose your time this year. You should take a vacation. No, the same thing is true with finances. So carve out money for yourself. Again, Profit First by Mike Michalowicz is a good place to start. The second thing to make sure everybody gets paid, make sure you take care of taxes. A lot of y'all, based on the analytics and stuff, a lot of y'all are in America or you're in Canada. We got taxes. Got to pay your taxes. Wherever you live, find out what the tax codes are. Find out what it is. It's not just what I was talking about earlier, as far as the you getting that $10,000 check for the work that you're doing, which is great. When you're doing something you love, getting like a five-figure check is amazing. There's nothing like that feeling. Getting any type of check to do what you love is amazing. But that hits different. That first time that happens, it hits different. You get again, you have to remember you owe other people. In our case, we owe the United States. I'm based in Las Vegas. So it's like, okay, run that. Nevada is a little bit different with the state tax, but that's a whole nother discussion. But that's the whole point. Like, so make sure that you have your taxes good and make sure that you have yourself good, right? Because I think it's really important to do that. Good episode to watch is episode from a year ago. It's from a while ago. But it was a decent episode where it's talking about getting your money together. And it's even deeper than this episode because we talk about three different things: budgeting, taxes, and investing. Worth checking out if you want to go deeper into that. And for my friend in the comments, if you're independent and you want to go deeper into getting brand deals, shout out to Bankrate, who's supporting this episode. You can learn more at the QR code right there. Thank you for supporting the show. And I mean, also you for supporting the show. You can click the link for free and learn more about high yield savings accounts. If you want to get more brand deals, more sponsorships for your independent hustle, particularly if you have like a newsletter, a podcast, or a video series. I have all three, so that's a lot of the work that I do. Passion Fruit is a great place. Excuse me. I've been working with them for about 2 years. Shout out to Caitlin Alford, who who highly recommended them. She actually does a great newsletter. I wish I had the link right here, but it's a newsletter that is full of freelance journalism opportunities. I think it's actually called Freelance Opportunities. Her name is Caitlin with a K, Alford, Alford, I believe is her last name. But shout out to you for putting me on game with Passion Fruit. Passion Fruit allows you to put on a profile to say how often or how frequent your newsletter, your media thing is. So my stuff is live on Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Also have my newsletter at joindamon.me. Both of them are on Passion Fruit. So then brands can go and say, oh, okay, this is Damon's work. This is his thing. Oh, he has a newsletter too. Okay, let's go ahead and we want to sponsor his newsletter and then da da da. The reverse can be true too, where they have, I think it's under Discover as of this recording, but they have a whole tab called Discover where you can click on that. And then there's almost like an RFP. So, like a request for proposal. So, it's a whole bunch of folks that are like, hey, we have a new music platform that's going to compete with Spotify. And we're trying to get in front of 18 to 25-year-old music listeners. And if that's your channel or if that's your newsletter, then we want to talk to you. I've gotten a few sponsorships just through that way, where I went in and just shot them a quick email through the platform that money's paid through the platform. It was smooth as silk. I love their work. Thank you so much for Glitch to the Ground for recommending that part because I totally forgot about mentioning that. you know, there you go. Save his account. You got to start somewhere, man. Like you got to start somewhere. I think that's really important to have that discussion, and to be like, okay, how exactly am I building something bigger here, and going from there. And speaking of, there's one other comment or one other thing that I forgot to mention too, which I will include in here. You can tell it's been a few months because I'm a little bit rusty. Boom. And then getting back on my East Coast. Shout out to South Jersey. So boom. There's another one called SoFi, which I actually use, and you guys might be familiar with it. And that is the personal link that they gave me a little while ago. I'll throw it in the comments as well, so you guys can have it as an active link just for your records. And so SoFi is really cool. And actually, I think I mentioned it in episode 412 here. Yeah, I think I mentioned it in here because that's around the time I started working with them. And so working with them, not even as far as like sponsorship and stuff like that, but working with them as in, oh, okay, I need to get a SoFi account. It's probably about 2 years ago, so it's a little while ago as of this recording. SoFi is really cool because they have a nice little app. They have a checking and savings that's built in, and then they also have a really good analytics. I mean, I nerd out on analytics. I know some of y'all do too. So like how much you spent last week compared to 2 weeks ago. Um, Even putting in things as far as credit cards, student loans, car loans, whatever you got, it actually syncs with everything. And then the app is right there on your phone. It was fantastic, particularly last year where I told you that I felt like my system was okay, but I really wanted to improve my financial system. It came in the clutch where I was like, oh my gosh, you know how you see the ads where it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had a subscription to this and da da da. They do this, and SoFi is free. You don't need to respect to those folks that are doing it. You don't need to go and get a specific thing to tell you when your subscriptions are out of control. You can just get an app like SoFi. So shout out to SoFi. You can go and use the link right there to get an account with them. And the last portion is decide on your best business structure. This is so important. There's people um, that I coach that are way more intense and have much bigger businesses than I even have. As I shared with them, my business is small for a reason. There are freelancers slash consultants that I hire, particularly for the books. You know who you are. I appreciate y'all always. But other than that, I'm solopreneur up. The book publishing, that's mine. I haven't done a traditional book in several years. And but depending on where you want your business is right now and where you want your business to go. Then you need to think about your business structure. My structure personally is relatively simple, but you have sole proprietorship, which is basically, hey, I'm running this company. It's my social security number, da da da, right? So that's one. Another level is LLC, which is often when other people are involved and you're doing it for a limited, which is the L, limited capacity. For instance, when we did Cuddler, the startup that I sold 10 years ago, my co-founder Charlie, I appreciate you. My co-founder Charlie started, I believe it was an LLC, because we're just three co-founders that were intermingling for this particular business activity. When we sold the business, we essentially sold the LLC. We were not personally involved. And that also meant, if I had stuff going on personally or within my family, or if the other two partners had stuff going on in their family, whatever, it wouldn't intermingle. If it was something as severe as like bankruptcy or some crazy stuff like that, then there would be no overlap. So, into protecting the multiple people involved. There's also a C corp, which gets a lot more complex. I know a couple of y'all that I coach have a C corp because you're getting a little bit bigger. There's also S corp, and I think S corp is the one where you have to be a nonprofit, and so a certain amount of your money needs to go back into the business and also into the communities that you're serving. And you get complicated really, really quickly. That's why I'm kind of just gliding on the surface. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a CPA, so I'm going to take it easy on that one. But the business that I actually work with, who's helped me even last year when I was trying to get my business tighter, actually it was 2 years ago now. Man, time flies. LegalZoom. They're simple. They work really well. They will tighten up your company standing. If you click on the link, and it will help support the channel, of course. If you click on the link, it'll actually give you insight into what the best system could be for you. That's one. Number two, there's actual lawyers you can talk to. I talked to a couple when I was doing some restructuring of my own business. Yeah, it's a couple years ago now. Again, time flies. Can't believe it's the new year. Hence us talking right now. So be sure and check them out. I think they're a really good place to start, and they're relatively affordable too. Again, I have lawyers and have had lawyers on retainer, and it ain't cheap at all, at all, at all. This is super affordable, and I believe if you use my link, then you'll be able to get some good discounts on it too. So, is your business structure currently working for you? Do you have certain ways that your business can be tightened up right now? I'm really curious. Jump into the comments, even if you're watching the replay. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and how that works. So today we talked about making more profit this year. Thank you so much for coming through. The three things that or four things that we're talking about. Number one, make your money active. Shout out to Bank Rate for let me get to my finger over here. There it is. Just mirrored up. Thank you for Bank Rate for supporting the episode. Use the link to learn more about high yield savings accounts, and you also support the channel. All of it's for free. Make sure your money's active, man. That's all I'm trying to say. Number two, create a system on delivery. So as soon as you get the check, know what you're going to do with it. Visualize it. Put it on paper. I'm a big index card guy. If you guys go way back with me, you already know that. Write it down. Write it down. Number three, make sure everybody gets paid. That means you, and that means the government. You don't want to be getting those letters in the mail, sir or ma'am. And lastly, decide on your best business structure. You can do all kinds of profit things. You can have a landmark year. And I know folks that it didn't work out for them because their business structure was not what they needed. Mine is relatively simple, but I have a relatively simple business or a few businesses under the umbrella of one simple thing. And again, LegalZoom will be able to help you with that as far as getting insight, as far as the best one for you. Until next time, remember you can always build from now, you can always bring your worth. And if you wait a moment, if you're watching on YouTube, you should see another suggested video. You can get hopefully some more knowledge. Appreciate y'all. You take care.